line up all our load-bearing joints on the wall. So stick your yoga block in between your knees, and you're going to walk your ankles back to the wall, glutes touching the wall, shoulder blades touching the wall, and if it's comfortable, your head can be touching the wall. If you feel like you have to lean your head back to touch the wall, don't force your head onto the wall, just leave it comfortably wherever it fits. So, you know, with posture therapy, we're focused on bringing our 8 load-bearing joints back into alignment, so our ankles, knees, hips, and shoulders. Now, lining this up against the wall is sometimes very hard for people if they've lost that integrity between those load-bearing joints. So we're just going to start and finish with this today and see if it gets a little bit easier. Now, for you two, it might be pretty easy to do this already, but we shall see if it gets a little bit easier. So just taking note of where you feel your balance here, if you're feeling a tug on the hip, if you're feeling anything in your back, feeling anything in your shoulders, if you're feeling one side rotating off, maybe one shoulder coming off on the wall. Just taking note of that balance. I want to take a couple deep belly breaths here. You might start to feel this a little bit in your calves. Oftentimes our hips are shifted forward from our ankles, so actually getting our hips shifted back over our ankles can take a lot of work with the calves, so it's kind of normal to feel some burning in the calves. Keep breathing. Awesome. Now go ahead and we're going to do some shoulder blade squeezes, so some scapular retractions. So you're going to squeeze and release your shoulder blades here. Squeeze and release. And in this, we're trying not to wing out our chest, so we're not trying to really like let our ribs flare. We're just trying to isolate the shoulder girdle. It's another thing that might be kind of a struggle. Taking note if the sides are even, or if one side is working a little harder, one side feels in a different place. For me, especially in the morning, because I'm a side sleeper, this left shoulder likes to round forward a little bit. Hi, welcome. And, sorry, we had somebody log on. Hey Melissa, I can't exactly see you. I'm actually only wearing one contact today because my other one was bothering me, so everything's a little double jointed. But I'll give you the lowdown. We are starting at the wall, pillow between the knees, lining up your ankles, knees, hips, and shoulders, and if your head fits comfortably on the wall, then you can let that happen. We're just kind of taking note of where our load-bearing joints are today, and then we're doing small shoulder blade squeezes. Good. Now we're going to turn them into shoulder blade shrugs. So pay attention here for a second. When you're going to squeeze your shoulders back and down, squeeze them back and down, and then you're going to lift up, but still back and down, and then back and down lower. Okay, so you're almost pulling them more into alignment when you lower them down. Right? It's not super focused on activating your upper traps. I want you to feel more of your lower shoulder blades. So squeeze, squeeze up, squeeze down, release. Squeeze, squeeze up, squeeze down, release. Squeeze, up, down, release. Keep going here. So when you squeeze up, you don't want to lose that squeeze. When you go up, you don't want the shoulders to come forward. You want to keep them back and then down. Squeeze back, up, and down. Do a couple here. I'm already getting a little warm in this apartment here. Note if your head or your shoulder blades feel a little bit different on the wall, if they're kind of falling onto the wall a little bit better. Now we're going to do a couple glute contractions. So all you're going to do is squeeze and release your butt. Squeeze and release without activating your tummy muscles. So you can go ahead and put your hand on your stomach if you want to. And you're going to squeeze and release your glutes. You could also put your hands on your butt here. You're trying not to kind of let your pelvis rock back and forth, keeping it all in one place. Tummy still, just isolating those glutes. Now this might be really hard for some of you just because we're keeping our feet in the proper straight alignment, and your glutes might not be used to activating with your feet exactly straight like this. So take note, again, like in all our classes, if you're feeling a difference side to side, if one side's a little bit stronger, if one side's being a little bit lazy, that's going to tell us a lot of information on what's happening below the glutes and above the glutes. So if you find that one foot turns out more often than another, and one glute is not activating here, there's probably going to be a connection. Woo! I don't know about you, but I just started feeling my calves there. They're waking up. Hello, calves. Good morning. All right, let's do 5 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, go ahead and come off. We're gonna move that out, kind of move it out of your body, and then we're going to grab our chair. Keep your block and your strap nearby because we're gonna spend quite a bit of time on the floor today. Grab your chair, anything that you can get your legs up at 90 degrees, and go ahead and lay with your legs bent at 90 degrees. I'm gonna lower this so you can kind of see the floor. Kind of getting an angelic shine with the sunlight in the morning. I might close my blinds here. It's, oh, there we go. Less angelic now. All right. Let me lower that a little bit more. Okay, so we're gonna bring our butt all the way up to our chair or whatever you're using, ottoman, couch. And then we're just gonna relax here with our palms facing up, letting all of our load-bearing joints melt into the floor. So today, really we're gonna be focusing a lot on bringing those 8 load-bearing joints back into vertical and horizontal alignment, which is what posture therapy is all about. I've been doing a lot of these like area-specific classes, but really posture therapy is about focusing on all of the load-bearing joints and making them work together. So that's really what we're going to focus on in a gentle, relaxing movement today because it's Monday morning and I bet we could all use a little bit of relaxation on a Monday morning. I don't know about you, but me. So here we're taking note where you're feeling your pelvis. We're just trying to let gravity relax us into the ground. Where you're feeling your lower back position, if it's arched up today, if it's fully relaxed, if one side feels different than another. I personally feel like my right hip is a little bit more tilted than my left. My left is pressing into the ground a little bit more. So that tells me that right hip is rotating forward. So just being aware of what's going on there. Same thing with your shoulders. Do a full body scan. Are you feeling one shoulder a little bit higher, a little bit rotated forward? Connect that with your hips. Is it the opposite shoulder and opposite hip? Because we've talked about that a little bit before in, which class was it? I think the hip opening class, if you guys were there. When we walk, when we do our gait, our one leg swings forward and the opposite shoulder goes forward with it. So it's very, very common to have posture deviations in one hip and the opposite shoulder. It's what I'm trying to say today. So like I can give you what I'm feeling this morning is that right hip is a little bit higher because I haven't done any of my movements today. I'm doing them with you guys. And my left shoulder is rotating up a little bit forward. So very connected. And I know that if I do stuff to bring my left shoulder back, it'll affect my right hip and vice versa. So take some deep belly breaths here. We're just asking the ground to pull us back into neutral. Relaxing our back. And then I actually want us to focus on our breath here. So we're going to take a deep breath into our stomach. So you can bring your hand to your stomach if you want. You're going to take a deep breath. And when you take a deep breath, your stomach actually expands. And then when you exhale, your stomach goes in. And on the last part of the end, I want you to squeeze all of your abdominal muscles. So we're going to do some ab contractions here. So you breathe in, your tummy your tummy expands. Exhale, the tummy goes in. And when you run out of all of the air, squeeze your tummy muscles at the very end, and then relax. And then we're going to do that again. Engage all your tummy muscles and relax. Breathe in, tummy expands. Breathe out. Tummy goes in. At the very last second, squeeze all your tummy muscles and relax. We're going to continue that. Squeeze. Do a couple more. These ab contractions can be a good way to retrain your body how to use your abdominal muscles without doing any sort of planks or crunches or anything like that. It could be great for people who suffer from diastasis recti, or if you can't do crunches without using your neck muscles, this can be a great way to get those, reestablish your stomach muscles on how to work without utilizing any other areas of your body. All right, now we're going to go ahead and do some more shoulder blade retractions. So bring your arms out to shoulder level, bend your fists up to the sky, make slight fists here. So you're making kind of this T, but floating. And then we're going to squeeze and release our shoulder blades. Squeeze, release. Squeeze, release. Squeeze, release. And keep going like that. Notice if this feels different than the shoulder blade squeezes we did on the wall. If it does, kind of ask yourself, okay, what's different than when we did it on the wall? And right now we're using gravity to our advantage. We're not on all of our load-bearing joints, so basically our hips, knees, and ankles aren't doing very much, and we're just kind of working on this torso up. So these shoulder blade squeezes can be very, very different than if we're standing. Same thing as our hips are in a different position here. Our knees are closer into our chest versus when they're open. When they're extended, like standing against the wall, it can change your shoulder position completely. And oftentimes we don't think about how much that can change the position of our joints. So squeeze and release. Take a little break if you need to, or if you're feeling uneven. Taking breaks in between can be a great way to come back and feel a little bit more even. Coming back, squeezing and releasing. If you're feeling any sort of popping or moving around, that's pretty common. It's not necessarily normal, but it's common. And most of the time, as you do these movements, that popping, that moving around will start to ease up and get a little bit smoother as your shoulder girdle realigns itself. All right, take a little break again if you need to. Check in with your lower body, see how that's doing, see if it's relaxed, see if your pelvis is relaxed a little bit more. If you're starting to feel a little bit more even in your hips, I know I am. We're going to do one last set of these reverse presses. Squeeze, release. Trying to get low shoulder blades. If you're feeling it in the neck, try to go a little bit lower in your shoulder blade squeezes. We're not aiming for the neck muscles, we're aiming for the bottom of our shoulder blades here. If you guys suffer from any sort of back pain, normally being on the ground, using the floor as a plumb surface can be a wonderful way to realign your pelvis. So your back doesn't work overtime. All right, let's take one final note in this position. We're going to move out of it here in a second. How are you feeling different than when we very first laid down in this position? Are you feeling your shoulders are further back? Are you feeling your hips are more aligned? Maybe your back is less arched up. It's going to be very different for everybody on this call. So that's why I just prompt you to note how you're feeling in these positions and then how they're different for you. All right, let's go ahead and move our chair away. We're going to stay lying. I'm going to grab a little bit of water. We're going to stay lying on our back with our feet on the floor. Go ahead and grab your block for me. And we're going to, and if you're using a pillow, you want something rather dense. You're going to stick that block in between your knees. Okay, try to make sure your feet are straight, hip width apart, so your hip joints not outside of your hips. A lot of people try to go pretty wide. I'd rather you go closer in than wide. All right. Just relax your shoulders, relax your back, and I want you to squeeze and release the block in this position. Squeeze, release. About 65 to 70% effort, not 100%. Trying to leave the abdominal muscles out of it. Try to leave the back muscles out of it. We're just working the hips and lower. Squeezing and releasing. Note today if you're feeling one side different than another. And a lot of you have been on this call before, and I always want to note that some days you might feel completely different than other days, and that's why I kind of prompt you every day to kind of note what you're feeling in that moment. So oftentimes when we have specific posture deviations, we'll feel very similar things in every exercise that we do, but then some days we're going to feel something completely different. And there's multitude of reasons that happens, you know, thinking back over your weekend. Were you more active? Were you less active? Did you sit a lot? Did you stand a lot? There can be a lot of reasons why you feel different in that day. So that's why we take the body where it is that day. So it's kind of, it's common to feel, you know, most days your left hip here is really strong and your right hip is lazy, I'm just giving hypotheticals. But then one day you're going to get into this position and your right hip's going to be really strong and your left hip's going to be really lazy and you're going to be like, what? That doesn't even make any sense. It's just kind of taking what your body is giving you that day and being okay with that, because it's trying very hard to keep you up and moving and doing all the activities that you want it to do. All right, take a little break from your block for a second. Let's do a couple pelvic tilts here. So you're going to press your lower back into the ground, tipping your pelvis backwards, and then you're going to arch it up, tipping it forwards. So you're going to press and arch, then press and arch. As you do this, try not to let your knees go wider or closer. Keep them right in line with your shoulders and your hips. Keeping your upper back relaxed. Just rocking the pelvis, getting a little mobility here. It's amazing how hard this simple movement can be for a lot of people because they don't move their lower spine and their pelvis this way. And when we start to lose that mobility, a lot of other compensating muscles start to take over, and a lot of people who can't move their pelvis like this have back pain. All right, grab that block. We're going to do another set of squeezes. Squeeze, release. Trying to make it even. We're not focusing on building our inner thighs. I mean, we are focusing on strengthening our pelvic girdle, but we're also just focusing on bringing balance and symmetry back into the body. Not getting built, jacked inner thighs. Sorry, wrong class. You can do that class after this, and you're going to bring a more even body to getting those jacked inner thighs if you want them. Normally people don't use the word jacked to talk about inner thighs. I'm just kind of going off on a rant here. This is what happens in morning classes. All right, are we starting to feel a little shaky? Lean into that shake. If it isn't, try to make this harder for yourself. So try to isolate just those inner thighs. Don't move your pelvis. Don't move your back. I always say lean into the shake, because we're waking up those muscles that have been lying dormant, that have gotten us into these kind of mangled, weird positions. All right, go ahead and take your block away. Let's do a couple more pelvic tilts here. So rocking your pelvis back and forth. Does it feel different than the first time you did it? Does it not? Just kind of taking note of that. All right, go ahead and grab your strap or a necktie or something that gives you a little bit of resistance, so you can be about hip width apart. A resistance band does not work because it gives you too much stretch. All right, we're gonna put it around our knees, or really just above our knees. Don't put it directly around your knees. About a fist width distance. So if you stick your fist in there, should be able to just stick your fist in there. Okay, feet still straight. Relaxing the upper back. We used our inner thighs, now we're gonna go outer. All right, so keeping your big toe engaged here. Now a lot of people, when they press out, they like to kind of roll on the outside of their feet. I want you to make sure you keep pressure in all 5 toes, but especially that big toe. And then you're gonna press out, release. Press out, release. Press out, release. And keep going there. Now, hopefully, and not everybody feels this way, but hopefully in the last exercise we did, you felt it in your inner thighs. Now, sometimes when people are super compensated, they'll actually feel those squeezes in the outside of their hips at the very beginning. Now, as we do that exercise, they'll start to feel it in the right place. So here, we're pressing out, so we want to be using our abductors, so the muscles on the outside of our hips. But sometimes, depending on your posture, you might be feeling this in a completely different position or a different place. So as we go, that place might change as we relax those compensating muscles or really fatigue those compensating muscles out. Then the primary muscles have to kick in here, the abductors. Again, make sure you're still putting some pressure in those big toes. You're not letting your feet move. So it's kind of common to feel this even in your lower leg, in your calf. Pressing out, releasing. Give yourself a little break. We're going to go back into it. Press out, release. You can even look down with your eyes and see if one side is kind of working harder than another or pulling more than another. That's an imbalance, so we want to try to get it more balanced. Just don't let that one side pull harder. Again, trying not to use your abdominal muscles, trying not to rock your pelvis, just pressing out. If you're doing it right, there you should be feeling a bit of burn on the outside of your hips, maybe into the lower butt area. Definitely on the outside of the hips. It's amazing how shaky and burning this can be versus when you go to the gym and you try to use that abductor machine or the inner thigh machine. And this definitely can be harder than that if you do it right, because we're waking up those spinal stabilizing muscles. All right, do 10 more. I'm gonna check the time here real fast. Okay, perfect. All right, now you can go ahead and get rid of the strap. We're gonna do a couple glute contractions in this position. I told you we were gonna spend a lot of time on our back today. We're gonna spend a lot of time kind of strengthening our pelvis. So feet still the same position, knees the same position, upper body relaxed, or you can put your hands on your butt, either way. You're gonna squeeze and release your butt muscles. And here's the trick, don't let your abs or your pelvis move. Okay, so if you're feeling like your lower abdominals are trying to tilt your pelvis around, try not to let that happen. You're just squeezing and releasing your butt muscles. This can be really, really challenging for a lot of people. I can't tell you how many people I've done this exercise with and they're like, I'm sorry, where's my butt? I can't find it. They're like, what have I been using all this time to go upstairs and do squats? I'm like, well, obviously not your butt, so that's a problem. All right, are you feeling a strength difference? Are you feeling an activation difference? Is this easier or harder than we did it at the wall today? Oftentimes people will feel that this is a little bit easier than at the wall. Easier to find your glutes for one, and easier not to compensate with your stomach and your back. Still squeezing, releasing. It's probably going to look like I'm doing nothing on the video because it's such a tiny movement. You can't really see it very well. I just looked at that, I'm like, it looks like I'm doing nothing. I am, I promise. All right, Let's go ahead and cross. Let's do the right ankle over the left knee here, keeping your foot and your knee in the same alignment. And I want you to just press that knee out without moving your left hip. So we're not rocking our left hip out. Okay, we're keeping that left hip stabilized. We're just pressing that right knee out. You might be feeling a stretch in your outer hip, in your butt area. This might not be very challenging for you. That's okay. Everybody's in a different place. We're going to do a little bit of hip activation here. We're going to rock our left leg, left foot back and forth. So you're going to flex your left foot, and then you're going to go up on the ball of your foot. And then flex your foot and rock to the ball of your foot. So it's like a rocking chair movement. Flex and rock. Flex and ball of your foot. You can even put your finger, note how I'm putting my finger in my left hip area. I want you to see if you can actually feel that left hip working here. Now, you might start to walk your foot away from you, so go ahead and reset that and rock back and forth. Can you feel your psoas, your main hip flexor, kind of your groin muscle doing the work here? Like I said, a lot of hip activation today. Rocking back and forth. Might start to feel this in your shin, your calf, all your left leg. You thought we were just going to do a right leg stretch today. I fooled you. Just kidding. Not really. Reset if you need to, if your foot's walking away. Try to keep the bony bits of your pelvis still equally on the floor, so not leaning more over to your right. All right, let's go ahead and switch there. Left ankle over right knee. You're gonna stretch it for a second, making sure your butt cheeks are still evenly on the floor. You're not favoring the left side more. All right, gonna rock back and forth. Ooh, I got a little ankle pop there, nice. I call those free chiropractic adjustments. Rocking back and forth here. Really make sure you pull those toes back and then you go up evenly on the ball of your foot. Try to go that full range of motion. Note if you're feeling this side differently. I personally can feel this one a lot more in my shin. Less in my hip, more in my shin. You might be feeling it completely differently than I am. All right. Adjust your feet when you need to if you start walking away. Still pressing out with that left knee. Ooh, this one's more burny today for me. Which is funny because oftentimes my left side is more burning. Which, what did I tell you just a couple minutes ago that this that happens? That's why we got to pay attention that day. All right. Let's go ahead and flip over onto our hands and knees. We're going to do a few cats and dogs, cat, cow, whatever you want to call it. So hands directly under shoulders, knees directly under hips. You're going to drop your pelvis, or you're going to stick your tailbone up into the sky, drop your stomach, drop your shoulder blades here and look up. And then you're gonna go from your pelvis first, tuck your pelvis, roll through your lower back, and drop your head. So it's kind of a body roll from the pelvis first. Do it slowly, don't go all fast and stuff. See a lot of people moving through this movement very fast. But when you go slow, you can actually segment your spine as you go. Pelvis going first. Tucking that pelvis under. You can move through at your own pace, but keep it slow. Trying not to rock your hips back and forth. Keep them directly under your knees. It's a way of cheating. This one feels really good today. It's like a massage for your spine. I love it. Don't forget to collapse your shoulder blades in this dog position. When you do that, try not to let your elbows bend. If you've lost some movement in your shoulder blades, your elbows will try to bend as compensation. Don't let it happen. And that'll get easier as you move through this movement more often. Whew. Got an elbow pop, ankle pop, and elbow pop. Woohoo! Alright, let's go ahead and lie flat on our stomachs here. You're going to cross your hands in front of your face. You can just drop your forehead onto your hands. You're going to bend your knees, pull your feet down, knees are together, feet flexed, and then you're going to drop your feet out to the side. So we're making kind of like a wishbone look here. I'll give you kind of the front view. So you can see dropping your knees out to the side. It might look a little crooked like mine do today. And we're just going to hold that position. So oftentimes we don't get a lot of internal rotation of our femur. And a lot of times we focus on external rotation, but internal rotation is just as important. This you could be feeling honestly in your butt. I've had people tell me it feels like almost burning in that SI joint, which is kind of changing the alignment of your pelvis. So that's not abnormal. If anything's uncomfortable, don't do it. But if it's just burning, burning's not bad. Pain. Don't do it if there's pain. So we're just going to hold this for a little while. Note if you feel a difference, if you feel like one side is stretching more or one side you can feel go closer to the ground. Pretty common to have a difference in the femur position, so a lot of times people will feel one side going further down than another. Okay, now we're going to bring our ankles together, keep it nice and slow, like super duper slow, and then we're going to drop it back down. So we're going to move back and forth in between this. So when you drop it back down, try to go to the end range of motion. Really drop into that position. But also, try not to drop your toes further to the ground. So keep this 90-degree angle of your knees. Back and forth here. Let gravity pull you down at the end. Right here, kind of hold for a second and then move back again. Try to keep the bony bits of your pelvis into the ground so they're not kind of pulling away from the ground and you're arching your butt up. And then keep your hips relaxed into the ground. You might be feeling some shakes. I've seen people have like disco muscle shakes in this, or their muscles are just like moving a lot. And that's always kind of fun to see because it's just not a movement they get very often. Ooh. A little spazzy movement there. Are you feeling different in your hips? Are you feeling one side burning, one side not? Just taking note of that today. Alright, go ahead and keep it there at the open position. We're going to let gravity pull us down again. You're just hanging out in this wishbone position again, not moving back and forth. Does it feel different than the first time? If you were feeling it all one-sided the first time, is it more even now? I personally felt a lot in my right hip the first time because my right hip goes more internal than my left, and now my left hip is starting to drop a little bit, so that's exciting. Yay! Alright, stay there for a couple more seconds. I'm gonna check again. Excellent. Alright, we're going to go ahead and close. We're going to bring our feet back down. I want you to kick back. And we're going to do a form of child's pose here, but not your typical child's pose that you normally do. I want your butt to be higher than your ankles. So a lot of times child's pose is done where you sit back on your ankles and you go into this position. Well, I want us to actually lift our butt about 6 inches up, elevated, and then I want you to drop your stomach down into your thighs here. So you're almost like sticking your butt up child's pose. And note how when I do regular child's pose, my butt tucks under, versus when I do this, my pelvis tips forward and I get this straight back position. And then you're slightly pressing your hands down into the ground so you can get some shoulder work here too. So if you're tilting your pelvis forward, you're really trying to get your stomach into your thighs here. You should be feeling this quite a bit in your hips, in your groin. Sorry, my hair's getting in my eye. You should not be feeling much in your back, but really working into the hips here. So it's not really a stretch anymore as hip activation. So if you're not feeling that, try to come up a little bit higher and really stick that tailbone into the sky. Sometimes people know this as puppy pose in yoga. Hopefully you can hear me with my face into the carpet. We're gonna be here for a little while. Breathe into it. Every exhale you do, try to get your stomach a little bit closer to your thighs without really dropping your pelvis down, okay? Sticking that pelvis, making that slight arch in the lower back. Really shortening those hip flexors here, making them like really activate, really turn on. Excellent. All right, go ahead and come out of it. Do whatever you need to. It's a lot of hip flexor work if we're doing it right. All right, go ahead and stand up. Kind of move that out. You might feel a little tightness in your hips, so just kind of walk a little bit. That's okay, because we got those hip flexors kind of activated, which we want. So as you walk, you're going to walk out that tightness. Just kind of move around. Then we're going to go back onto the wall here. So grab your block again. And like I said, we're going to end the way we began. So let me tilt this up. Beautiful. Grab your block, stick it in between your knees. Walk those ankles back to the wall. Hips touching the wall. Shoulders touching the wall. Head touching the wall. Is this easier now that we went through all of that motion? Is your head now more on the wall than it was? Just kind of taking note of what feels different. Now we're gonna do a little bit more work in this position. So make that golfer's grip position with your hands. So curling your fingers down to the top pads, spreading out your thumbs, keeping your wrists nice and straight, not really doing any of this stuff, okay? Bringing your pointer finger to your temples. We're gonna do some elbow curls here. Open up your elbows, try to touch the wall behind you, and then we're going to close our elbows in, keeping your shoulder blades on the wall. Okay, if you have to move your shoulder blades off to touch your elbows, I want you to just do the slight range of motion, keeping your shoulder blades on the wall. You don't have to touch your elbows here. It's not available to everybody. But as you go, you might find that you get closer and closer. Going to move back and forth here. Keeping your butt, keeping your heels, keeping your head if you can on the wall. Excellent. Let's do 5 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Awesome. Now bring your arms straight out to the sides in this kind of T position, keeping your butt where it is. You can keep your block there for now. We're going to tick-tock over to one side. And we're going to tick-tock over to the other side. Now, if you don't have room for this at your house, you can do this off the wall. Just try to pretend like you are on a wall. I know not everybody has the room for this in their house. You can do it floating. It's more beneficial if you do it against the wall, but you know, it's all good. Do what you can do. Ugh, this feels really good today. All right, go ahead and throw that block over to the side. And we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to widen our feet a little bit. Okay, tick-tock over to one side. Tick-tock over to the other. Again, keeping your butt glued to the wall. Don't let your butt rotate here. Shoulders stay against the wall. Thumb and pinky stay against the wall. Don't let your thumb kind of rotate off. Head staying against the wall if you can. You're going to mess up your hair, but that's all good. All right, a little bit wider here. You're going to have to kick into that outside butt muscle here. Fix your shirt if you need to. And tick-tock over. Back and forth. Does it feel easier not to move your hips around in this position? Making sure your toes are pointing straight forward. They don't start to evert. They don't start to go out to the sides. Oh. Excellent. All right, one more set here. Relax your arms, kind of shake it out. A lot of times there's a lot of arm work for people. We're gonna go back into hip width position, toes pointed straight. One more time in that straight position. Does this feel easier or harder than when you very first started? Maybe you're getting tired. I personally feel awesome. I feel like that really helped reset my load-bearing joints. So if you're feeling easier in the standing position, it's because of all of that work we did resetting your joints, bringing them back into proper alignment on the floor. And that's why we spent so much time on the floor today. Alrighty, relax. What time is it? Oh, we're good. So that's what I got for you. If your hair's messed up like mine, I'm gonna stop this recording.